Hello everybody, my name is The Unknown Reviewer. Welcome to the vid. I have now seen Weapons, the latest Zach Cregger horror film about a small town where in a kindergarten class at 2:17 a.m. a group of kids start walking out in the woods in the middle of the night, not to be seen again. And then the next day, the whole city goes into panic, wondering what happened to these kids. And that's pretty much the main plot of the movie. I won't be giving anything away. There is so much in this movie, in fact, that I have to make a spoiler review, which I plan on making sometime later this week, but be on the lookout for that. But Weapons, I think people were so hyped about this movie, so anticipated. To be honest, I was probably that 3% who wasn't honestly that interested in seeing the movie. I was like, you know what, it looks fine. I don't think I'm going to waste my money on it though, because I just don't feel like, I just don't feel like watching it. It doesn't look that interesting to me. Sure, the trailers were good, but I just felt like I don't feel like it. And then when I saw the Rotten Tomatoes score and the fan score, how it had a higher Rotten Tomatoes score than Sinners, it has 100% right now, guys. I was like, okay, now I gotta see this movie and see what the hype is all about. And after seeing it, hype is good, but it's kind of too much, and I'm gonna explain why. Now, I'm not saying I didn't have fun with Weapons. No, ladies and gentlemen. I loved Weapons. In fact, I would say this might be my second favorite horror film of this year. No joke. I don't know if it's my favorite horror film, because I haven't honestly seen that many this year, but I think that this is definitely a great movie. Now, the first thing I just really like is just Zach Cregger. Now, so I saw Barbarian about a year ago. I think it was about around a year ago. But I remember watching Barbarian, and I loved that movie. I know most people didn't like it. I actually really enjoyed the movie, and I was like, okay, you know what? If Zach Cregger's behind this movie, count me in. But after seeing it, Zach Cregger did it, count me in. And that gets on to my next thing, the characters. The characters were awesome. I loved the characters. Justin Grandy, who's played by Julia Gardner. If you don't know who that is, she was recently playing Silver Surfer in the newest Fantastic Four movie. She is great being the main character. I actually disagreed that there's another character who I'll be talking about in my spoiler review. And, but I just loved her. She is a great, person who you honestly feel for throughout the whole movie. How she's some, happy teacher, but she's kind of an alcoholic at home. She's being bullied, and not bullied, but just, blamed for the disappearance of the kids and how the whole town hates her, and, she's being called a witch and just stuff like that, to where you honestly feel for her. And then the next character I really liked is Josh Brolin's Arthur Graff. I don't know if I said that right, but he plays, a dad to one of the missing kids, and I loved him, how he was like a detective going to some of the parents whose kids were missing, and just looking at their surveillance cams to where they went, to where it's like, oh man, I'm about to spoil it. I have to make a spoiler review for this movie. But I really liked his character. He was definitely my favorite, my personal favorite of this movie. And there were so many more characters, there's a homeless man named James, Ben Wong's character, a cop character. There's just so many characters, and I don't want to get into all of them. There is one character named Alex in this movie who I really enjoyed his character, and I felt the same way about him as I did Julia Gardner's character. I just really loved how, even a 9-year-old kid had probably some of the best acting in this movie. And the acting is great. Peak acting. There is so many moments where you feel for these characters, where you're scared for them. And it's just, I love how Zach Cregger can do that in most of his films, where you feel on edge of your seat, you're like, what is happening? Or are they about to make it? Are they about to die? What is about to happen? And then now I'm going to get on to how this movie was set up. I loved the story about this movie. The story is peak. It is awesome. Zach Cregger did it all. And I love how it's set up. It's set up to where each character gets their perspective. You see what happened during when the kids disappeared. You see how they all reacted. You see how each time frame sets up to something, and I love how it was handled like that. And that's what makes this movie so unique in a way, to where I was like, wow, I really like that. I also really enjoyed just the premise itself. Name a horror movie where kids just run out of their house at 2:17. No, there's never been a movie like that, so that's what makes this movie so different, and I just love the premise of that. I also loved how the opening just was like that. I'm not gonna say specifically what happens in the opening because I want to say that for my spoiler review, but the movie opens very well, and it's not a boring opening like some horror movies. But my next positive is this movie has a comedic charm to it. Now, I'm not going to say the movie's funny all over. No. I'll get into the horror thing in just a minute. But obviously, I know Zach Cregger... I just said his name wrong. Zach Cregger was a comedian at one point, so you kind of get some funny moments to where I was dying laughing and having way more laughs than Freakier Friday. I'm going to be poking fun at Freakier Friday, okay? But I loved how it was very jokey, very, charismatic, and it was very, very just funny watching some characters, And I loved how that comedic charm, because comedy is my favorite genre. So I really did like that. Well, I guess it's one of my action comedy. I can't pick. But the next thing I will talk about is the horror itself, because this is a horror movie, so you obviously want to know what the horror is. Good horror. There was moments where I had to turn my head away, or I was like, ugh, or where I was like, ooh, there was a girl sitting right next to me, in fact, a whole line of them. But they were screaming to the top of their lungs. And it was funny just watching them scream. But, it was scary. There was moments where my whole theater was, like in shock. They were gasping. It was scary. It was good. It was bloody. It was gory. Yeah. Now, this is where I'm going to get into my nitpicks of the movie with things that I didn't really think I really liked. I'm not going to say the pacing's, bad or anything. It's just there are some, story beats where you can be, taken away or, what's happening, where they kind of take that horror element away for a little bit, and they kind of just where it's not even thrilling, it's kind of just what's going on in some moments. But I don't think that really holds the movie back. Now, I personally thought it was fine. I'm not gonna say it was good. I find it's kind of there's a difference. I think people are gonna be slightly disappointed with the reveal on who's behind the kids being missing. I'm not gonna say who it is because I'm gonna say it for spoilers. But I think people will honestly be disappointed. Me and my dad were both kind of disappointed because we didn't get much backstory. Why they're doing this? Why? What is the motive? But I will say a positive for them though is that they're very good antagonists to where you want them dead, you want them to suffer. It's kind of like that. And then that kind of also puts me into the third act of this film. The third act, I will say it's a good third act, but there were some things where I was like, okay. There were some moments where I was like, what? Why? I don't really care for that. Why did that character do that? It wasn't stupid. It was just I kind of wish the third act was more, build up and suspenseful. It was suspenseful, but it was I don't know. I'll talk about spoilers. But then I also will say the ending for this movie was I wouldn't say it was a bad ending. It was just there were some things for some character arcs I just didn't really know why they chose that decision, or just some things with just some characters that I just kind of wish were different. But that is truly all the nitpicks I have with this film. I think this movie is great start to finish, and I think you're going to have a great time. Even if you're someone who didn't like Barbarian, I think you can still pretty much enjoy Weapons, as I did. And I will be making a spoiler review on this movie. But that, everybody, is my review. I just want to thank you all so much for watching this video. Make sure you comment, like, and subscribe, and tell me what your thoughts were on Weapons. And my name is The Unknown Reviewer. Take care. Bye.